Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today you are in for another treat. So, let's get started. What will you do if you were born at the very pinnacle of the world as a member of the royal family, but still was always treated with contempt and hatred, always thinking that your existence was unwanted and simply a mistake? Yes, such was the life of our protagonist. Raymond was born as an illegitimate child of the emperor. He had always been seen as an outcast and was treated with contempt by those around him. People whispered behind his back, their fingers pointing at him in disgust. He was a stain on his father's reputation, an unwanted existence. Yet, he possessed one rare gift: healing, a divine ability revered regardless of one's social standing. Those who could wield it were showered with wealth and honor. It was Raymond's one hope, his chance to escape the life of a despised outcast. But fate was cruel. His healing ability was weak, an abysmal grade F. No matter how hard he trained, no matter how desperately he tried, he could not overcome the limitations of his talent. 5 years passed, and he remained nothing more than an apprentice, a glorified errand boy for other healers. He was a disgrace, a failure, a pathetic excuse for a healer. Then one day everything changed. Raymond awoke to an unfamiliar sensation. A strange message hovered before his eyes. He has awakened as a player. Occupation: surgeon. He blinked, bewildered. A surgeon? He had never heard of such a thing. Perhaps it was a dream, a figment of his overworked imagination. But suddenly he found himself in a sterile metallic room. A patient lay before him, bleeding profusely. Urgent voices filled the air. His vitals are dropping. We need a transfusion now. The words made sense to him, despite never having heard them before. He stood clad in a blue surgical gown, instinctively responding to orders. Raymond woke up with a start, heart pounding. The dream was impossibly vivid. But more than that, he retained knowledge. Terms like vital signs, transfusion, and surgery were burned into his mind. Then, another message appeared before him. Congratulations on becoming a player. Job: Surgeon SSS. Check your status window. Confused, he hesitantly muttered, "Status window." A new screen materialized before him. Player status: Name: Raymond. Class: Surgeon SSS. Occupation grade: Novice Resident. Level: 1. Experience: 0 of 50. Skill points: 0. Title: Dirty Illegitimate Child. Stats: Physical Strength: 3. Perception: 2. Intelligence: 17. Academic Skills: Surgery D, General Surgery C, Basic Medicine C, Medical Botany S, Endemic Pathology A. Attributes: Heart of Steel D. Support Skills: None. Limitations apply due to low level. Cure patients to gain experience. Raymond stared at the messages, his mind spinning. He didn't understand how, but one thing was clear: this was an opportunity, a miracle. He had been given a second chance. Raymond was still lost in his thoughts when a sharp voice snapped him out of his daze. "You pathetic bastard. How long are you going to crawl on the ground like that?" The voice belonged to a bald healer, his tone laced with disdain. As Raymond struggled to push himself up, the healer smirked and upended a bucket over his head, drenching him in filthy water and discarded rags. "You suit this trash perfectly," the healer sneered. "With your F-rank talent, this is all you'll ever amount to in the prestigious Belland Clinic." Around him, hushed murmurs rose from the onlookers. "What's he still doing here?" someone whispered. "He only got into this clinic because of his father," another remarked with a scoff. "I heard they're finally getting rid of him," a third voice sneered. Raymond ignored them. But before he could leave, an irritated voice called out behind him. "Hey, Lemon, Chief Healer Lance wants to see you." Raymond turned toward the direction of the healer's office. He knew this meeting wouldn't end well. Inside the room, Chief Healer Lance sat behind his desk, arms crossed. He was a young yet talented healer, having risen to B rank within just a few years. His contempt for Raymond was evident in his smirk. 5 years, Lance said, shaking his head. "It's been 5 years since you became an apprentice, hasn't it?" Raymond's stomach twisted. He already knew where this conversation was going. "Yes," he replied stiffly. "Most apprentices finish in 2. Lance sighed dramatically. "We've been patient, but it's time to face reality. The Beeland Clinic cannot keep you here any longer." "You're being dismissed," Lance said bluntly. "You don't have the talent to be a healer. Pack your things and leave. Please reconsider." The words escaped Raymond's mouth as he bowed down. If he was expelled from the clinic, he would never become a licensed healer. Without certification from the healing tower, he couldn't practice legally. He would be nothing. A message appeared before his eyes. "You can treat patients through surgery." His mind raced. If he could prove his new abilities, if he could successfully treat someone in front of the other healers, then perhaps, just perhaps, he could overturn their decision. He lifted his head, meeting Lance's gaze with newfound determination. "I'll prove that I can heal," he declared. "Just give me one patient." Lance frowned. "What do you mean?" Raymond remained firm. "Just as I said, if you assign me a patient, I'll treat him. Give me one more chance." Lance laughed at his boldness. "You think treating a patient is a joke? All right then, we have the perfect one for you." He pulled out some papers and handed them to Raymond. "We have a patient with a severe infection in the hip area. Try treating him." Raymond's eyes widened, but Lance continued triumphantly, "If you can cure this patient, I won't kick you out." There was a reason behind Lance's confidence. The infection in question was a difficult case, requiring at least B-grade healing prowess. There was no way Raymond could possibly treat such a patient. Raymond left the room. The patient lived on Rankin Street, a district of commoners barely scraping by. Those who lived there couldn't afford treatment, and so cases were passed to healers like Raymond, those at the bottom of the hierarchy. Will I really be able to do this? Doubt gnawed at him, but he steeled himself. He had no other choice. Becoming a healer was his only hope. If he failed here, he would be cast out, doomed to live a miserable life at the bottom of society. Raymond arrived at the patient's house and knocked on the door. As it creaked open, a sudden force sent it slamming into him, knocking him to the ground. A young girl stood in the doorway, her eyes widening in panic as she realized what happened. Rushing toward him, she grabbed his hands, her face streaked with tears. In a trembling voice, she asked if he had come from Beeland Clinic. Without waiting for an answer, she turned and called out, "Mom, a doctor is here." A middle-aged woman appeared from inside the house, her eyes filled with desperation as she took in the scene before her. "Please, save my father," the girl cried, her voice trembling. Memories of his past resurfaced, visions of a younger Raymond standing at the door of the clinic, his small frame trembling as tears streamed down his face. Desperation laced his voice as he pleaded for help, promising to do whatever it took to earn the money he lacked. Clutching a single coin in his hand, he sobbed, begging them to save his mother. The rarity of healers made medical treatment expensive. Only aristocrats and wealthy commoners could afford proper care, while the poor often died from untreated illnesses. Raymond's heart wavered for a moment. He hadn't chosen this path out of a sense of duty. He had pursued healing because it was the only way to rise above his status. But looking at the desperate mother and daughter, something inside him shifted. "Let's make sure to cure him. For my future and for them," he said. "I'll do my best. Please guide me to the patient." Suddenly, a message appeared in his mind. "You volunteered to treat the patient. A special bonus will be given. 5 skill points acquired." Skill points, he wondered. Skill points. Acquired by achieving special achievements or completing quests. Use them to purchase skills that aid in patient treatment. Another message followed. A sudden quest is given. Treat your very first patient. Medical quest. Medical grade. Half scalpel. Difficulty level, low. Clear conditions. Treat the first patient. Reward. Bonus level up, 10 skill points. Raymond clenched his fists. He was still nervous, but he was determined. "I will succeed in becoming a healer. No, I'll be the best healer. I will live with honor and wealth, never ignored by anyone again." The moment he entered the room, however, he nearly froze. The stale stench of infection filled the air. The patient lay weakly on the bed, his body drenched in sweat. For a moment, Raymond's mind went blank. Panic threatened to overtake him. What's the first thing I need to do? He knew the answer, but fear clouded his thoughts. Then, another message appeared. Attribute skill, Heart of Steel, is manifested. Heart of Steel. Classification, Attribute skill. Rating, Legendary. Proficiency, D. Effect, provides a steel, will, and unwavering focus. Enhances all patient-related actions. Low proficiency. Effect is incomplete. Increase proficiency for full benefits. Almost immediately his mind cleared. His hand stopped trembling. He turned to the patient's wife. What exactly is the problem? The woman hesitated before explaining. A boil formed near his hip. It wouldn't go away, and it kept growing. Now he can't sit or stand. Raymond examined the patient carefully. A large, swollen abscess was visible on his hip. A hip abscess, he concluded. He knew the treatment. All I need to do is make an incision and drain the pus. Simple enough. Yet, despite his knowledge, tension gripped him again. I have to overcome this, he thought. Healer. The woman called hesitantly. Can you cure him? The clinic said it would require high-grade healing magic. Without hesitation, he nodded. Yes, it's possible. But I will need your help. Will you help me? The mother and daughter exchanged a glance before nodding. We will. Raymond took a deep breath. Then prepare clean water. Boil it at a high temperature, as hot as possible. Also, he continued, find the sharpest knife you have. Heat it over a fire. The woman hesitated. A knife? Raymond confirmed. Yes, and heat the knife over fire. I'm going to perform a surgery. The daughter turned to her mother and asked what surgery was. The mother explained that she had never heard of it before either. Preparations for the procedure were quickly completed. Raymond still found it hard to believe he was about to perform surgery. Though the abscess drainage was a simple procedure, barely deserving the term surgery, his heart pounded as he stood before the patient. As Raymond prepared to begin the surgery and make an incision to drain the abscess, the mother's expression shifted to one of shock and fear. Her face darkened with worry as she abruptly grabbed his hand, demanding to know what he was doing. Raymond explained to the woman that he was treating her husband, but she couldn't understand why a healer would use a knife instead of simply healing him with magic. He reassured her, asking for her trust, promising that her husband would recover and smile again with their daughter. His words brought her a small measure of comfort, and she hesitantly released his hand, choosing to wait quietly. Meanwhile, Raymond felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. He had to succeed. He recalled his time in the operating theater, watching surgeons work with calm precision. Even when a patient's arteries started bleeding, they remained composed, stopping the bleeding and ensuring visibility, knowing that any delay could lead to cardiac arrest. They all had one thing in common: a cool head, a compassionate heart, and a deep understanding of medical knowledge. This was the mindset a true healer should possess. With his surgical knowledge, a procedure like abscess excision was almost trivial, so simple it was hardly worth calling surgery. He carefully excised the abscess, and pus began to flow from a wound. The sight alarmed the child, who called out to her father in distress. Raymond steadied himself, reminding himself to follow proper medical procedures. He used a clean cloth to wipe away the pus, then poured sterilized water over the wound, ensuring it was thoroughly cleansed. Once the pus was gone, he carefully cut away the necrotic tissue. Only when he was satisfied that the infected area had been completely treated did he finally set the knife down. As a final step, he applied a herbal potion with natural antibiotic properties to the wound. The procedure was complete. Both the mother and child looked at him anxiously, and when she asked if everything had gone well, he assured her it had. He instructed her to watch over her husband. She hurried to his side, holding his hand as she waited. After some time, the patient stirred and slowly opened his eyes. Tears of relief filled his wife's eyes, and she clutched his hand tightly. Seeing this, Raymond checked the man's fever, and to his satisfaction, it was completely gone. The patient would recover in a few days. Overcome with gratitude, the woman struggled to find the right words to express how thankful she was. Raymond humbly stated that he had only done his duty, but she insisted that it was far more than that. No healer had ever done what he had for her husband. She had visited countless clinics only to be turned away because they lacked the money to pay for treatment. Those healers hadn't even examined him. But thanks to Raymond, she didn't have to lose her husband. To her, he was the savior of her family. As Raymond tried to respond, the child suddenly ran to him and hugged him tightly. It was the first time anyone had thanked him so sincerely for treating them. He hugged the child back, realizing that this must be the true joy of healing. Later, he went to Chief Lang's office. The chief was in complete disbelief when he heard that Raymond had successfully cured the patient. He immediately dismissed it as a lie, refusing to believe that someone with such weak healing abilities could have managed such a feat. Raymond wasn't surprised by his reaction. After all, this was an affliction that even experienced healers struggled with, and he wasn't even an F-rank healer. Healing wasn't an all-powerful ability that could cure every disease just by placing a hand on a patient. On Lena, healing magic worked by boosting a person's vitality, which in turn activated various natural recovery processes. However, this method was useless against many illnesses, including conditions like the abscess Raymond had treated. No amount of vitality-boosting magic could remove infected pus trapped inside a wound. The problem lay in how healers on Lena had grown over-reliant on their magic, neglecting proper medical research. Lost in thought, Raymond barely noticed as Chief Lang, growing increasingly frustrated, declared that he would inspect the patient himself. A chill ran down Raymond's spine at the chief's words. If it turned out that he had lied, there would be severe consequences. Lang made it clear that if the claim proved false, Raymond would have to face the price for it. As the chief left, Raymond took a deep breath, steadying himself. He had done nothing wrong, so he had no reason to be afraid. At that moment, several notifications appeared before him. His quest was complete, and he received 10 skill points, leveling up in the process. The notification explained that leveling up required accumulating skill points. Additionally, as he leveled up, he could increase his stats, and upon reaching level 40, he could even advance his rank. At present, he was a rookie resident. He wondered if leveling up would gradually advance him through the medical ranks, moving from rookie to trained resident, then perhaps even to specialist or professor. If that were the case, his growth potential was immense. To commemorate the successful treatment of his first patient, he received a special bonus, bringing him to level 3. Examining his stats, he noticed he had received an additional stat point for each level gained. The available attributes intrigued him. Sense seemed to be related to fine motor control, helping with delicate surgical movements. Intelligence improved his ability to process and apply medical knowledge. Stamina governed his physical endurance, including strength and resilience. A final ability remained locked, its name hidden behind question marks. He assumed it would be revealed once he met the necessary conditions. For now, he decided to allocate 2 points into sense. His hands had trembled slightly during the abscess operation, and improving his dexterity would make his future procedures smoother. Blushing slightly at the thought, Raymond felt a rush of excitement. If he continued progressing like this, he could overcome his lack of natural talent and rise to the top, becoming an exceptional healer despite his weak starting point. He was still reveling in his growth when Chief Lang suddenly returned. The chief, though reluctant to admit it, had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Raymond had, in fact, cured the patient. A promise was a promise, and as such, Lang agreed to give him a chance. He led Raymond to a medical relief station, informing him that he would have 15 days to prove himself. This time, however, he couldn't rely on luck. Raymond exhaled slowly, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation. The relief station was the best place for him to gain experience and treat patients, allowing him to level up further. This was the closest thing to an emergency room in this world, and he was determined to make the most of it. Bowing politely, he introduced himself, stating that he was Raymond, the newest addition to the medical relief station. However, the other healers were unimpressed. One of them kicked him aside, telling him to stay out of the way. Whispers spread among them. How could someone with such weak healing abilities possibly expect to treat patients? He should have just chosen another path. Another healer tossed a rag at him, ordering him to stop standing around and start cleaning. Raymond quickly realized the problem. This place wouldn't even give him a chance to examine a patient. Yet he knew the stakes. If he didn't successfully treat a patient within 15 days, his apprenticeship would be over, and he would be cast out once again. What will happen to Raymond in such a situation? Find out in the next episode. And that wraps up today's recap. For another such treat, subscribe to the channel so that I can bring more such content to you, and you don't miss the daily uploads. Do it. Subscribe. Please subscribe, and don't forget to like, comment, and share the video. See you with another such treat.